The sound sliced through the cozy hum of the Small Delights bakery like an emergency alarm. Amelia Davis felt every pair of eyes turn, every conversation halt, every silent judgment form. The shame was a physical heat, crawling up her neck, burning her cheeks. "Try it again?" The cashier, a bored teenager with a nose ring, suggested, her impatience bordering on contempt. Amelia's hands trembled as she swiped the card again. The plastic felt flimsy, fraudulent, declined. "Maybe you have another one?" The cashier's voice was louder now, performative, ensuring everyone in the growing line was part of the spectacle. Behind Amelia, the queue of 5 had morphed into a jury of 500. "If she didn't have the money, why did she even order the cake?" a woman in a power suit whispered, not nearly as quietly as she thought. "People like that always think they'll get away with it," a man in a crisp shirt muttered, checking his watch with theatrical irritation. The cake, a simple chocolate round with modest frosting, $24.99, sat on the counter in its plain white box. It was for Grandma Rose's 72nd birthday. Rose, who was at home waiting, always so grateful for everything, never asking for anything, deserving at least this one small joy. Tears burned behind Amelia's eyes. The humiliation burned hotter. She was about to give up, to abandon the cake, flee the bakery she'd frequented for every special occasion, and never return, when a voice cut through the tension. It was unexpectedly calm, deep, and steady. "She's with me." Amelia turned, and she saw him. He was tall, maybe in his late 20s, with features that belonged on magazine covers, a sharp jawline, eyes the color of warm amber that held a startling intelligence, and dark brown hair that was perfectly, artfully disheveled. He wore a gray cashmere sweater that was clearly expensive, but worn with the casual air of someone who had never once considered a price tag. She recognized him. He'd been in the bakery 10 minutes earlier, looking lost in the gluten-free section like a tourist in a foreign country. He had been staring at 2 different loaves of bread with genuine confusion when she, guided by an instinct to help, had approached. "Looking for something specific?" she'd asked. "Ah, yes. My grandmother. She has restrictions. Gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. Doctors love to take all the joy out of old age, apparently." He'd said it with a dry humor that was laced with obvious affection. Amelia had laughed. "My grandma has restrictions too. This one." She had pointed to an almond flour loaf studded with dark chocolate. "Is gluten-free, sweetened with erythritol, and made with coconut butter. And it's actually delicious. A rare find." "Are you a nutritionist?" "A physical therapist." "Was. I specialized in geriatrics. I took care of my grandmother for years and learned everything I could." "She was lucky to have you," he'd said, with a sincerity that caught her off guard. "Thank you. Seriously. Trying to buy things for her makes me feel completely useless." "You're not," she'd replied. "The fact that you're here, trying, that matters more than you think." There had been a moment, a flicker, almost nothing, where his amber eyes lingered on hers with something that looked like surprise, recognition. Then he'd smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile, and gone to pay. What a kind man, Amelia had thought, before promptly forgetting him. Until now. "Sorry, darling," he said, stepping forward with the easy confidence of a man who owned the ground he walked on. "I must have given you the wrong card this morning." He held out his hand. Amelia stared, her mind reeling. They didn't know each other. They weren't a couple. He was lying. But then his fingers closed around hers, a gentle but firm grip that sent a silent message. "Trust me. I'm saving you." Something in his touch, in the unwavering sincerity of those amber eyes, made her play along. I'm sorry. I'm so distracted today." "It's all right," he interrupted softly, guiding her gently to the side as he stepped up to the counter. "Hers and mine, please." He handed over a black card, not a regular one, but an Amex Centurion, the kind Amelia had only ever seen in articles about the ultra-rich. The transaction was approved in an instant. The whispers in the line shifted from judgment to speculation. Who is he? Look at that card. The cashier handed over their bags, and he guided Amelia out of the shop, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. The gesture felt impossibly natural, but it sent a tingle of electricity through the thin fabric of her jacket. Outside, on the crisp October sidewalk littered with fallen leaves, he finally let her go. "I'm sorry about that in there," he said, his voice soft and devoid of condescension. "You didn't deserve to be humiliated." "I'll pay you back," Amelia said immediately, her wounded pride still throbbing. "I swear, as soon as I get a job." Amelia. The fact that he knew her name stopped her. She must have looked confused, because he explained, "I heard the cashier say it, and about the job." He pulled a business card from his pocket. The paper was thick, cream-colored, with embossed gold lettering, Caspian Pembroke, CEO, Pembroke Holdings. Below it was an office address in Manhattan that Amelia recognized as one of the most expensive buildings in the city. "You said you took care of the elderly, that you were a specialist." "I am," Amelia corrected, a sliver of hope cutting through her shame. "But no one hires without years of institutional experience. It doesn't matter how much you know in practice." "I do," Caspian said simply. "My grandmother needs care, and in 6 months, you're the first person who has actually seemed to understand what she needs, not just technically, but humanly." He flipped the card over and wrote a different address on the back, not an office, but a residence on the Upper East Side. "Come tomorrow, 10 a.m. Please, just consider it." Amelia looked from the card, to him, to the cake in her hands. The cake he'd paid for, the humiliation he'd erased, the job offer that could change everything. "Why are you doing this?" she finally asked, her voice a whisper. "For a stranger?" Caspian considered the question with a seriousness she didn't expect. "Because sometimes strangers understand better than anyone, and because—" He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his perfect features. "Because my grandmother is too lonely, and I don't want to see someone I love feel invisible anymore. You helped a stranger in there today without expecting anything in return. Let me do the same." Before Amelia could respond, he gave a small nod and walked toward a black Mercedes parked at the corner, leaving her on the sidewalk. She was holding a birthday cake and a business card, and her heart was hammering in a way that made no sense at all. That night, when Rose blew out the single candle on her cake, Amelia looked at the 2 women she loved more than anything and thought, tomorrow. Maybe, just maybe, everything changes. The wrought iron gates probably cost more than Amelia's entire apartment building. They guarded a mansion that shouldn't exist outside of a period drama, a sprawling stone edifice that screamed generations of old money. Amelia checked the address on Caspian's card for the 3rd time. She checked Google Maps twice. This couldn't be right. The estate had gardens that stretched beyond sight, and fountains that belonged at Versailles. A disembodied voice crackled from an intercom. "May I help you?" I have a meeting with Caspian Pembroke." It came out as a question. She was still half convinced yesterday had been a bizarre, elaborate dream. "Name?" "Amelia Davis." A pause, then, yes. Mr. Pembroke is expecting you. Please come in." The gates began to swing open, slow and dramatic, like curtains revealing a stage. Amelia took a deep breath and walked through. What have I gotten myself into? She walked up the circular driveway, because of course she walked. The cab ride here had already cost half of what little cash she had left. Caspian's Mercedes was parked next to a vintage Bentley and something that might have been a Rolls-Royce. The front door opened before she could knock. It wasn't a butler. It was Caspian. He was barefoot, dressed in faded jeans and a gray Henley that clung to his frame. His hair was slightly messy, as if he'd just run his hands through it, and he was smiling in a way that made something warm unfurl in Amelia's stomach. "You came." He sounded genuinely relieved. "I kind of had to," Amelia admitted, clutching her worn handbag. "The job offer. I really need a job." "Right. Of course, come in." He stepped aside, and Amelia entered a world of obscene grandeur. The foyer had 20-foot ceilings and a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than her entire college education. A sweeping double staircase looked like it had been stolen from the set of Cinderella. "It's too big," Caspian said suddenly. Amelia turned. "What?" "The house. It's ridiculously big. My parents built it to, I don't know, prove something. But now it's just me and my grandmother, Elizabeth. We use maybe 8 of the 40 rooms." The self-deprecation in his voice humanized the absurdity of it all. 40 rooms, Amelia repeated faintly. Caspian let out a real, unpracticed laugh. "Come on, I'll introduce you to the real reason you're here." Elizabeth Pembroke was not what Amelia expected. She was in the library, a magnificent 2-story room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a rolling ladder straight out of Beauty and the Beast. Dressed in a simple cashmere twin set, she sat in a plush reading chair, a copy of Pride and Prejudice resting in her lap. "Grandma," Caspian said softly. "This is Amelia Davis. She's here for the interview." Elizabeth lowered the book. Her eyes, the same amber as Caspian's, but softened by age and wisdom, studied Amelia with an intensity that was both unnerving and strangely maternal. "You're tiny," Elizabeth finally said. Amelia blinked. "I'm... sorry?" "Tiny. Frail. Caspian said you're a physical therapist, but you look like a strong wind would blow you over." "Grandma," Caspian started, mortified. "I'm strong," Amelia interrupted, her chin lifting. "Stronger than I look. I took care of my grandmother for years, helped her recover after a stroke. I learned every exercise, every technique, and she's thriving today, thanks to God and a lot of hard work." She smiled. "My grandma Rose says I'm stubborn as a mule. I think it's a compliment." "Rose?" Elizabeth's expression brightened. "Your grandmother's name is Rose?" "Yes, ma'am, Rose Davis. She's 72 and the wittiest woman you'll ever meet." "I'd love to meet her," Elizabeth said with obvious sincerity. "Women named Rose are always special. My best friend growing up was named Rose." A shadow of memory crossed her face. "She passed 10 years ago. I still miss her every day." A respectful silence fell. Then Elizabeth smiled, a warm, genuine smile that transformed her face. "You're hired." "Grandma, we can't just," Caspian protested. "I can and I did. She stays. Now, Amelia, my dear, do you play chess?" 3 hours later, Amelia had played chess with Elizabeth and lost spectacularly. Listened to stories about the war. He was a pilot, I was a Red Cross volunteer, utterly cliché but perfect, and discovered that this 82-year-old woman was sharper than most people half her age. "So?" Caspian asked when they were finally alone in the hallway, his voice low. "Do you accept? The salary is $75,000 a year, room and board included, full benefits. You'd live here during the week." It was more money than Amelia had ever dreamed of. It was a solution to so many problems. It was impossible. "Why me?" she finally asked. "You could hire anyone, professionals with decades of experience." "Whom she hates," Caspian cut in gently. "Amelia, I've had 15 nurses in the last 6 months, all perfect on paper. All of them made my grandmother feel like a task, not a person. Then you show up, and in 3 hours, she's laughing and telling stories I haven't heard in months." He stepped a little closer. "I don't need perfection on paper. I need someone who sees my grandmother as human, and you do that naturally." Amelia looked at him, at the raw sincerity in his eyes, at the fierce love he so clearly had for his grandmother. "Yes," she whispered, "I accept." The smile that lit up Caspian's face was transformative. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." As she left, Caspian insisted his driver take her home. She glanced back to see him waving from the doorway. "I think I just changed my entire life," she thought, "and I don't know if I'm terrified or thrilled." When she got home and told her mother, Sarah, and Grandma Rose, their reactions were exactly as expected. Sarah: "$75,000 a year? Amelia, that changes everything." Rose. Is he handsome? Tell me he's handsome. Amelia blushed. Grandma. It's a legitimate question. You'll be living with him, with his grandmother. I'll be taking care of his grandmother. Who lives with him? In the same house? Rose grinned, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Interesting. Later that night, lying in bed, Amelia thought about Caspian's smile and his quiet kindness. And if her heart beat a little faster, if she dreamed of amber eyes and transformative smiles, well, she could pretend it was just excitement about the new job. For now. Amelia's first dinner at the Pembroke mansion was surreal. She was seated in a dining room that could host 20, but held only 3, on a chair that probably cost more than her entire living room sofa, eating food a private chef had prepared. A private chef. She was trying very hard not to look completely out of place. "You're very quiet," Elizabeth observed, cutting into her salmon with elegant precision. "Thinking of running away yet?" Amelia nearly choked on her wine, which Caspian had poured, saying, just a little to relax. No, definitely not. It's just, this is all very excessive?" Caspian suggested, not looking offended. "Unnecessary? Ridiculously ostentatious?" "I was going to say different," Amelia corrected diplomatically. "But yes, maybe a little large for 3 people. "Finally," Elizabeth clapped her hands delicately. "Someone who speaks the truth. Caspian, darling, I've been telling you for years. I know, Grandma, but selling the house would be liberating," Elizabeth finished for him. "But he's sentimental. He grew up here, has memories, even if most of them are of being lonely." The observation hung in the air, heavy and revealing. Caspian went still, a flicker of pain crossing his face before it vanished behind a polite mask. Amelia, who had spent years reading her own grandmother's expressions to detect discomfort, saw it. She instinctively changed the subject. "Grandma Rose called me today. She wants to know if Elizabeth would like to chat on the phone sometime. She said, 'Women of 72 and 82 have a lot to talk about regarding how the world used to be better.'" It worked. Elizabeth laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. "Your grandmother sounds wonderful. Yes, I'd love that." "When?" "Anytime. She's always available." Retired and, in her words, bored because her granddaughter now lives in a fancy mansion. "You told your family?" Caspian asked, rejoining the conversation, obvious gratitude in his eyes for Amelia's rescue. "Of course. My mom almost fainted at the salary. My grandmother wants to know if you have any handsome single friends." Amelia felt a blush creep up her neck. "She's unfiltered." "I like her already," Elizabeth declared. "And yes, bring her to visit. Bring them both. This house needs more life, more laughter, more warmth," Caspian completed softly, looking at Amelia in a way that made her stomach do a little flip. More warmth. The rest of the dinner flowed easily. Elizabeth told stories about when the mansion was built, the 1960s, new money trying to look like old money, utterly ridiculous. About her late husband, Henry. He hated this house too, preferred our little cottage on the lake. About raising Caspian, the most serious little boy I ever met, always worrying, always taking care of me, even when he should have been playing. After dinner, as Amelia helped Elizabeth to her room, Caspian was waiting in the hallway when she emerged. "She loves you," he said. "Already?" Amelia smiled. "She barely knows me." "Grandma is an excellent judge of character, always has been. And she sees in you what I saw." He stopped, as if realizing he was about to reveal too much. "Competence," he finished quickly. "Professionalism." But the way he averted his gaze, the way the tips of his ears turned faintly pink, told her that wasn't what he'd meant to say. "Caspian," Amelia said before she could stop herself. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you okay?" "Earlier, at dinner, when your grandmother mentioned loneliness." He went very still, for so long that Amelia thought she'd crossed a line. Then, his voice was a low rasp. "My parents are on a cruise, again, for the 3rd year in a row. They call every couple of months, maybe. Ask about the business, never about me. Never about Grandma. And His voice broke, just slightly. I grew up in this enormous house with only her. The best years were when she was strong, active, teaching me things. Now, taking care of her, I watch her slowly, not fade, but grow more fragile. And it terrifies me. Tears welled in his eyes. Without thinking, Amelia reached out and took his hand. She's not fading. Elizabeth is one of the most alive people I've ever met. Yes, she's getting older, but that doesn't mean she's lost. It means she needs someone who understands that every day is precious. And you understand that. It's why you hired me. Caspian looked down at her hand on his, then up at her face. Thank you, he whispered, for understanding and for being here. There was a moment, suspended, charged, where they stood too close, looking at each other in a way that transcended professionalism. Then Caspian cleared his throat and took a step back. You must be tired. Your room is on the second floor, third door on the right. If you need anything, I'll be fine, Amelia assured him, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Good night, Caspian. Good night, Amelia. Later, in her room, which was larger than her entire living room back home, with a king-sized bed and an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub, Amelia couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, processing the day, the mansion, Elizabeth, Caspian, especially Caspian, the raw vulnerability when he spoke of his loneliness. No, she told herself firmly. You are here to work, to care for Elizabeth, not to develop feelings for her billionaire grandson. But when she finally drifted off, she dreamt of amber eyes and smiles that transformed entire faces. And when she woke in the morning, she found a note slipped under her door. Breakfast at 8. Grandma wants pancakes. Do you know how to make them? If not, we can learn together. Caspian. Amelia held the note as if it were a treasure and smiled in a way that had nothing to do with work at all. Amelia found Caspian in the library at 11 o'clock at night. She'd gone downstairs for a glass of water when she saw a sliver of light bleeding from under the massive library doors. Curiosity won. She peeked inside, and there he was, barefoot in sweatpants and a t-shirt, curled up in a worn leather armchair that seemed molded to his frame, completely absorbed in a thick book. The scene was so human, so different from the CEO in perfect suits she'd seen in the photos online when she'd researched him. Not that she'd researched him much, just basic due diligence. Are you going to stand there spying, or are you coming in? His voice made her jump. He hadn't even looked up from his book. Sorry, Amelia said, pushing the door open fully, feeling like a child caught doing something wrong. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not. I was just needing a break. He finally looked up, and Amelia saw the exhaustion etched around his eyes. It wasn't physical tiredness. It was a deep, emotional weariness. Bad meetings. Just long ones, and filled with people telling me what they think I want to hear, instead of what I need to hear. He closed the book. Amelia caught the title, The Picture of Dorian Gray. You read Oscar Wilde at 11 o'clock at night? She couldn't help but ask. A small, self-conscious smile touched his lips. When I need to be reminded that youth and beauty are temporary, but art and kindness endure? Yes. Profound for a Tuesday night. Or desperate. Take your pick. A comfortable silence settled between them. Then Amelia moved, before she could overthink it, and sat in the armchair opposite him. May I? Please, Caspian gestured around the vast room. The library is for everyone. Grandma insists. She says books that aren't read are just sad, expensive decorations. Your grandmother is a wise woman. She is. A pause. Do you read? When I have time. Lately, not so much, but... Amelia scanned the shelves. There were thousands of books here. My God, this is an entire library. 4 generations of Pembrokes accumulating. There are first editions, classics, contemporary, poetry, non-fiction, everything. Have you read them all? Maybe a quarter of them. I'm working on it, very slowly. Caspian stood, walking to a specific shelf. Favorites? Depends on the mood. When I'm happy, I read Austen. When I'm sad, I read Wilde or Bronte. When I'm angry, I read Nietzsche. And when you're lonely? Amelia asked softly. Caspian froze, his hand resting on the spine of a book. I read letters, old correspondences between writers, because it reminds me that loneliness is universal. Even geniuses felt it. The admission was so raw it made Amelia's chest ache. What's your favorite? Caspian asked suddenly, turning back to her. Book. What's your absolute favorite? Amelia thought for a moment. Persuasion, by Jane Austen. Ah, The Second Chance. The Second Chance, Amelia confirmed. About people who lost each other and found their way back. About a love that waits. You're an optimist, Caspian observed, but he was smiling. Or a realist. Sometimes the best things are the ones you almost let get away. There was a moment where they just looked at each other, across the dimly lit library, surrounded by thousands of stories of love and loss and everything in between. Then Caspian broke eye contact, pulling a book from the shelf. Here, read this. It was a beautifully bound copy of Persuasion. A first edition, Amelia realized with a jolt. I can't take this, Books are meant to be read, not preserved, Caspian quoted his grandmother. And maybe, when you're done, you can tell me why it means so much to you. Why? Because I want to understand. I want to understand you. The confession hung in the air. Amelia took the book, her hands trembling slightly. Okay, but only if you lend me your favorite too. Caspian hesitated, then pulled a slim volume from another shelf. Letters to a Young Poet, by Rilke. It's not a novel. It's about solitude, and creation, and finding meaning. But it's mine. I'll take care of it as if it were treasure, Amelia promised. I know you will. They stood there, each holding a piece of the other's soul, bound in leather and paper. It was intimate in a way a kiss couldn't be. Amelia returned to her room, clutching both books to her chest like a shield. She opened Letters to a Young Poet, and on the first page, she saw it. Masculine handwriting in faded blue ink. To Caspian, on your 16th. When you feel lost, remember, solitude is where art is born, but you don't have to live there forever. With love, Grandma Elizabeth. Amelia felt tears burn her eyes. This book was precious, and he had lent it to her. She fell asleep reading Rilke, and she dreamt of libraries and men who read about loneliness at 11 at night because they didn't know how to ask for company. When she woke, there was another note under her door. Thank you for last night. The conversation was more therapeutic than 6 months of board meetings. Caspian Amelia saved the note, along with the first one. She was starting a collection of small moments that meant more than they should. The storm arrived without warning, a typical, violent October squall. Amelia was in her room at 10 o'clock at night when the first clap of thunder boomed, so loud it rattled the windows. She jumped, her heart racing. She had always hated storms. She tried to distract herself, picking up Caspian's book, but the words blurred as another thunderclap exploded, followed by a flash of lightning that lit up the entire room. And then, blackout. The power died, plunging the mansion into absolute darkness. Amelia held her breath, trying not to panic, but the rooms here were so large, so dark, and she was alone, and a knock on her door. Amelia? Caspian's voice. Are you okay? Amelia opened the door, trying to look calmer than she felt. Caspian stood there with a flashlight, his hair damp. I'm fine, she lied. Just wasn't expecting the blackout. It happens sometimes. The generators will kick in a few minutes, but I thought... He hesitated. I thought you might not want to be alone in the dark. The consideration warmed something in Amelia's chest. "Is your grandmother okay?" "Sleeping like a stone. Storms never bother her. But you—" His eyes scanned her, seeing more than she wanted them to. "You don't like storms." "It's not a fear," Amelia defended herself weakly. "It's just a strong preference against them." Caspian smiled. "Right. A strong preference. Come on. I know a better place to wait for the generators." He guided her, a gentle hand on her back again, that touch that was becoming so familiar, down the dark hallways to a cozy sitting room. It was smaller than the main one, with a fireplace already crackling and windows overlooking the garden where rain lashed violently. "I was in here when it started," Caspian explained. "I lit the fire because I knew the power would go. It happens every time a storm is this bad." He gestured to a tray on the coffee table. "I made hot chocolate. Before you ask, yes, I know how to make hot chocolate. Grandma taught me. It's one of about 5 things I know how to cook." They sat on separate sofas, the fire crackling between them, the hot chocolate warming their hands. Amelia expected awkwardness, but instead, there was comfort. "Want to know something embarrassing?" Caspian said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "Of course. I don't like storms either, for completely irrational, childish reasons." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Really? The billionaire CEO is afraid of thunder. When I was 8, I was alone during a storm like this one. My parents were somewhere, and I was here, in this giant house, with only a nanny who barely spoke English and didn't understand why I was terrified." He took a sip of chocolate. "Lightning hit a tree in the front garden. It burst into flames, and I thought, ridiculously, childishly, that the house was going to catch fire and I was going to die alone." "Caspian," Amelia whispered. "I know. Ridiculous. But ever since—" He gestured vaguely. "Storms remind me of being alone when I needed someone." "It's not ridiculous," Amelia said firmly. "You were a child. Children shouldn't be alone during scary things." "You're right. But I was. A lot." A heavy silence fell. Then Amelia stood, moved to his sofa, and sat beside him, not touching, but close. "Well, you're not alone now." Caspian looked at her, really looked at her, with an intensity that stole the air from her lungs. "No," he said softly. "I'm not." Thunder boomed again. This time they both jumped slightly, then laughed at the synchronicity. And somehow they were closer, shoulders touching, a shared warmth. "Thank you," Caspian said softly, "for being here, for not judging me." "Thank you for getting me," Amelia replied, "for not leaving me alone in the dark." They stayed like that, sitting on the sofa as the storm raged outside, talking about everything and nothing, about childhoods and fears and dreams they'd almost given up on. The generators finally kicked on at 2 in the morning. The lights flickered back to life, breaking the spell. Caspian cleared his throat, creating a little distance. "You should get back to bed. Elizabeth wakes up early." "Right. Yes." Amelia stood, feeling the cold where his warmth had been. "Thank you for everything." "Always," Caspian said, and there was a promise in that single word that made her heart race. Amelia was almost at the door when he called out, "Amelia." She turned. "Yes?" "You make storms less scary." She smiled, a small but genuine smile. "You do too." When she got back to her room, she found a cozy blanket on her bed that definitely hadn't been there before, with a note attached. "For the next storm, or any cold night, or whenever you need some comfort. Caspian." Amelia wrapped herself in the blanket, which smelled faintly of his cologne, and realized, "I'm falling." The thought was clear in her mind. She was falling, slowly and terrifyingly, for a man who read Rilke at midnight and made hot chocolate during storms, and she had no idea how to stop, or if she even wanted to. Caspian hasn't talked about his feelings since he was 14, Elizabeth said casually, as if she were commenting on the weather. Amelia was helping her with her morning mobility exercises when she said it. Amelia paused mid-stretch. What happened when he was 14? She asked. Elizabeth looked out the window. In the garden below, Caspian was pacing back and forth on the phone, a familiar tension in his shoulders. He asked his parents to come home from their cruise, Elizabeth explained. He was having nightmares, trouble at school, clearly depressed. Do you know what they said? Amelia shook her head, her stomach tightening. Elizabeth's lips thinned. They said he was being dramatic, that he needed to grow up. They came back 4 months later, for another party. Caspian never asked for anything again. The revelation stayed with Amelia all day. She watched Caspian differently now, seeing the layers of protection he'd built. During lunch, Caspian mentioned an upcoming business trip. 2 days in Boston, he announced. Meetings with investors. I leave tomorrow morning. He looked at Elizabeth, but his eyes flickered to Amelia as he asked, Will you be all right without me? I have the best caregiver in the world, Elizabeth said warmly. I'll be perfectly fine. Besides, Amelia and I are planning an Audrey Hepburn movie marathon. You'd be bored. Probably, Caspian agreed, smiling. But there was something in his eyes, a reluctance. After lunch, Amelia found him in his office, packing his laptop. Can I talk to you? She asked. Of course, he said, giving her his full attention. Your grandmother told me about when you were 14. Caspian went very still. She shouldn't have. She worries about you, Amelia interrupted gently. And I just wanted to say, if you ever need to talk about anything, I'll listen. No judgment. No thinking you're being dramatic. A vulnerable look crossed his face. Thank you, but I'm good at handling things on my own. No one should have to handle things on their own, Amelia said softly, even when we've learned how. That night, Amelia woke at 2 a.m. to a sound. It wasn't a storm this time. It was softer. Crying? She got up, pulling on her robe, and followed the sound. It led her to Caspian's door, which was slightly ajar. She could hear it clearly now. Not loud, but unmistakable. Muffled sobs. Her first instinct was to knock, to go in, to comfort him. But then she remembered what Elizabeth had said. Caspian hasn't talked about his feelings. If she went in, she would expose him, force him to admit a vulnerability he'd spent years hiding. So Amelia just stood there, on the other side of the door. Her hand was raised to knock, but she didn't. She just stayed, a silent witness. Her presence a quiet message. I'm here. You're not alone, even if you can't let me in yet. The thought was a promise in her mind. After minutes that felt like hours, the crying stopped. Amelia heard him move, likely composing himself. She backed away quickly, returning to her room before he could open the door and see her. But she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her heart breaking for the man who had learned at 14 that asking for help was a weakness. The next morning, Caspian was as impeccable as ever, a perfectly tailored gray suit, hair combed, no sign of the night before. Good morning, he greeted them at breakfast. Sleep well? Perfectly, Elizabeth replied. Amelia hesitated, then asked, Did you? His eyes met hers, and for a split second there was a flicker of recognition, a silent acknowledgement. He knew. Somehow, he knew she had been there. Better now, he said softly. Much better now. When he left for Boston, Elizabeth took Amelia's hand. You were outside his door last night. It wasn't a question. I heard a noise, Amelia started. And you stayed, Elizabeth finished. You didn't invade, you didn't force, you just stayed. Thank you. For giving him something he's never had. What's that? Amelia asked. A witness, Elizabeth explained. Someone who cares enough to stay, but respects him enough not to push. Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. I do care, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper, more than she should, so much more. I know, my dear, Elizabeth smiled. And soon he'll know it too. Amelia woke up feeling like her body was on fire. A fever so high her teeth were chattering, yet she was sweating through her pajamas. Her throat burned, her head pounded. When she tried to stand up to check on Elizabeth, it was 7 a.m., time for morning exercises. The room spun violently. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick. No, not now, she thought, her mind racing. Elizabeth needs me. Caspian's away. She dragged herself back to bed, her hands trembling as she reached for her phone. Who could she even call? Her mother, Sarah? No, she was at work. Rose? Her grandmother would panic. Should she call Caspian? No, he was in important meetings. Before she could decide, there was a knock on the door. Amelia? It was Elizabeth's voice, laced with concern. It's 7:15. You're never late. Amelia tried to answer, but what came out was a pained groan. The door opened. Elizabeth came in, saw Amelia in bed, and immediately switched from elderly woman needing care to matriarch in command. You're burning up, Elizabeth said, her cool hand on Amelia's forehead. How long have you been like this? Woke up. Like this, Amelia managed to say through chattering teeth. Okay, don't move, Elizabeth instructed. She left the room, and Amelia could hear her on the phone, her tone urgent. 15 minutes later, which felt like an eternity, the front door opened, followed by the sound of rapid footsteps. Then Caspian appeared in her doorway. He was still in his suit, his hair messy as if he'd been running, his face a mask of raw concern. You were in Boston, Amelia said, confused. I came back, he stated simply. He crossed the room and placed his hand on her forehead, his touch surprisingly gentle. You're boiling. Grandma called, said you were sick. I canceled the meetings. You didn't have to, Amelia started. I had to, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He turned to Elizabeth, who was standing in the doorway. Grandma, can you be okay on your own for a few hours? Caspian, I'm 82, not 182, Elizabeth replied with a small smile. I can manage. You take care of her, like she takes care of me. Elizabeth then left, closing the door behind her. The next few hours passed in a feverish haze. Amelia drifted in and out of consciousness, but through it all, Caspian was there. He brought her water, coaxing her to take small sips. He placed cool cloths on her forehead. He held her hair back when she was sick again, acting as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You should be working, Amelia mumbled during a moment of lucidity. I am working, Caspian replied, adjusting her pillows. I'm taking care of the person who takes care of the person I love most in this world. This is important work. I'll get you sick, she whispered. I don't care, he said. Caspian. Shh, rest. I'm here, he insisted. And he was. He stayed through the afternoon and into the night. A doctor came. Caspian had called his private physician, diagnosed a severe flu, prescribed medication, and left. But Caspian stayed. He moved an armchair from the corner of the room to her bedside and worked quietly on his laptop, glancing up at her every few minutes. Checking, watching, caring. During the night, the fever finally broke. Amelia woke up, truly awake and lucid for the first time in hours. She saw Caspian asleep in the chair, his laptop closed in his lap, his head tilted at an angle that was sure to be painful later. He had changed out of his suit into a t-shirt and sweatpants. There were dark shadows under his eyes. He looked exhausted. And, she thought, absolutely beautiful. She didn't want to wake him, but when she tried to move, a soft groan escaped her lips. Caspian was awake instantly, alert as a soldier. Are you okay? Do you need something? He asked, his voice hoarse with sleep. I need the bathroom, Amelia admitted, blushing. And you need a real bed. Your neck is going to be destroyed. I'm staying, Caspian said firmly, until you're completely better. Why? Amelia asked, the question that had been on her mind since the day in the bakery. Why do you care so much? Caspian looked at her for a long, intense moment, as if deciding something. Then he spoke. Because when you're here, this house is a home. And when I thought of you being sick, alone, with no one to take care of you, I couldn't breathe. So I came back. And I'll stay as many nights as it takes until I'm sure you're okay. The confession hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Caspian, Amelia whispered. No, not now, he said, standing up and offering his hand. Right now, let's get you to the bathroom. Then more water. Then you sleep, and I'll watch. And tomorrow, when you're stronger, we can talk. But as he helped her, his arm firm around her waist, holding her as if she was something precious, Amelia knew. There was no talk that could change what was happening. They had crossed a line, and she didn't want to go back. 2 days later, Amelia was finally well enough to resume her duties with Elizabeth. That evening, however, it was Caspian who came home from the office with his wrist bandaged. What happened? Amelia asked immediately, her physical therapist instincts kicking in. She gently took his hand to examine it. It's nothing, Caspian said, trying to pull away. Caspian, she said, her tone firm, echoing the one he'd used with her days before. He sighed. An argument with a partner. I hit the desk. Too hard. I might have sprained it. You might have... Amelia shook her head in disbelief. Sit down. Now. She led him to the living room, sat him on the sofa, and carefully removed the makeshift bandage he'd clearly wrapped himself. His wrist was swollen and bruised. This needs ice, proper compression. And you'll need to avoid using it for a few days, she instructed. I have meetings, Caspian started to protest. Which you'll conduct with your left hand, or you'll delegate, she countered. She went to get the first aid kit, returning with an ice pack and a proper compression bandage. As she worked, her touch professional and gentle, checking his range of motion, she could feel Caspian's eyes on her. You're good at this, he observed quietly. It's literally my job, she replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. This is going to be sore for a few days. No more punching desks, Mr. Pembroke. He made me angry, Caspian murmured. The partner. He was suggesting we sell off a division that keeps 500 people employed because it wasn't profitable enough. As if people are just numbers on a spreadsheet. Amelia paused and looked up at him. You didn't sell, did you? Obviously not, he said. But the fight was intense. So you took your frustration out on the poor, innocent desk. Apparently, he admitted, with a small, self-conscious smile. It's not my finest quality. You care too much, Amelia said softly, finishing the wrap. About people, about doing the right thing. That's not a flaw, Caspian. It's rare. A quiet moment passed between them. Amelia was still holding his injured wrist, and Caspian's eyes were filled with an emotion that made her breath catch. You took care of me, he said softly, when I was sick. For days. You took care of me first, Amelia reminded him. You canceled meetings. Because I couldn't stay away, he confessed, his voice raw. Because the thought of you needing something and me not being there made me physically ill. And I know. He ran his good hand through his hair. I know this complicates everything, that you work here, that this is probably inappropriate, but... Caspian, Amelia said, placing a finger on his lips to quiet him. Stop thinking for 1 minute, and just feel. She took his good hand and placed it over her heart, where he could feel it beating fast and erratic. Do you think it's just you feeling this? His eyes widened. Amelia. I took care of you because I wanted to, she said. Because the idea of you being hurt, even if it's just a sprained wrist from punching a desk, made me want to be here, caring for you, just like you did for me. The moment was suspended, charged with months of unspoken tension. Then Elizabeth appeared in the doorway. Are you two going to stare at each other forever? Or is someone going to have the courage to do something about all this sexual tension? She announced. Grandma! Caspian was mortified. Amelia covered her face, laughing despite her embarrassment. "I'm old, not blind," Elizabeth continued, relentless. "You two have been circling each other for weeks like stubborn magnets. Caspian, you canceled multi-million-dollar meetings to take care of her. Amelia, you blush every time he walks into a room. So for heaven's sake, do something about it, or I'm going to die of frustration before old age gets me." Elizabeth turned and left, leaving Caspian and Amelia in a stunned silence. "She's not subtle," Amelia finally said. "Never has been," Caspian agreed. He paused, then added, "But she's not wrong." "She's not?" Amelia asked. "About me," he clarified. "About how I feel. About—" He took a deep breath. "Amelia, I don't know how to do this. Relationships, vulnerability, letting someone get close enough to hurt me. But with you, I want to try." Amelia's heart soared. "You want to try us? If you want to, no pressure, no expectations." "Yes," she said, not letting him finish. "Yes, I want to try." The smile that lit up his face was transformative. "Yes?" "Yes," she confirmed. He moved closer, slowly, giving her time to back away. She didn't. When his lips finally touched hers, it was gentle, questioning, perfect. When they pulled apart, both breathing heavily, Caspian rested his forehead against hers. "Worth punching the desk for," he murmured. Amelia laughed. "You're an idiot. Your hand is going to hurt for days." "I don't care one bit," he whispered back. As they kissed again, deeper this time, months of tension finally released. Neither of them noticed Elizabeth watching from the doorway with a satisfied smile. "Finally," she whispered to herself. "About damn time." It was Friday night, 2 weeks after their first kiss. Amelia sat in Elizabeth's favorite library chair, reading Emma aloud. Caspian was in his own armchair, pretending to work on his laptop, but he was really just watching Amelia. He watched the way she changed her voice for the different characters, the way she laughed at the funny parts, the way she unconsciously twisted a strand of hair around her finger when she was concentrating. Elizabeth was in her recliner, supposedly listening. But Caspian saw the moment her eyes closed, the moment her breathing became soft and even. She had fallen asleep. Amelia, lost in the story, hadn't noticed. Caspian stood up silently and walked over to Amelia, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. She stopped reading and looked up. "She's asleep," he whispered, gesturing toward Elizabeth. Amelia looked over, saw the peacefully sleeping woman, and smiled. "She always falls asleep in the middle of books," she whispered back. "She says it's because my voice is as soothing as a lullaby." "It is," Caspian agreed, and the warmth in his tone made Amelia blush. Amelia started to get up to wake Elizabeth, but Caspian stopped her. "Let me get her," he said. "Are you sure?" Amelia asked, glancing at his still healing wrist. "With your wrist?" "It's better," he assured her. "And she's light." He bent down, sliding one arm under his grandmother's knees and the other behind her back, lifting her with a practiced ease. Elizabeth murmured something in her sleep but didn't wake. "Come on," Caspian said to Amelia. "Help make sure I don't trip in the hallway." They walked together, Caspian carrying Elizabeth, Amelia at his side, opening doors and turning on soft lights. The moment felt domestic, intimate, like family. In Elizabeth's room, Caspian gently laid her on the bed. Amelia removed the older woman's shoes, adjusted the blankets, and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "Good night, Elizabeth," she whispered. When they stepped out, closing the door softly behind them, Caspian took Amelia's hand. "You're incredible with her," he said. "I love her," Amelia replied simply. "Like family. I hope that's not—" "It's perfect," Caspian interrupted. "She loves you too. You're not just a caregiver, Amelia. You're part of us now." They walked back to the library to retrieve the forgotten book. The room was dimly lit, the fire still crackling, creating an undeniably romantic atmosphere. "I should go to bed," Amelia said, but she didn't move. "You should," Caspian agreed. but he was moving closer. "It's late," she said. "It is," he replied, now standing directly in front of her. "And Elizabeth wakes up early." "Always," he said, his hands coming up to gently frame her face. "But I really want to kiss you right now." "Then kiss me," Amelia whispered. And he did. It wasn't gentle and questioning like the first time. It was deep and urgent, filled with weeks of pent-up desire. Amelia's hands went to his hair, pulling him closer. They stumbled, half laughing and half gasping, onto the sofa, where they fell in a tangled heap. They kissed until they were breathless, until Caspian forced himself to stop, resting his forehead against hers. "Not here," he said, his voice hoarse. "Not rushed. You deserve better." "Caspian," she started. "When it happens," he continued, "and it will happen, I want to do it right. Not in the library at 11 o'clock at night where anyone could walk in." He kissed her forehead. "You're worth the wait." Amelia's heart melted. "How are you real?" she whispered. "I ask myself the same question about you every day," he answered. They stayed like that, curled up on the sofa, Amelia's head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. At some point, wrapped in the warmth and safety of his arms, Amelia fell asleep. She woke, or half woke, when she felt herself being lifted. Strong arms were under her. The familiar scent of cedar and something warmer filled her senses. It was Caspian. He was carrying her, just as he had carried Elizabeth. "I should say I'm awake," she thought. But there was something about the moment, about being cared for so completely, that made her keep her eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. She felt him carry her up the stairs and into her room. With a gentleness that stole her breath, he laid her on the bed, adjusted the pillows, and pulled the covers over her. And then, she felt a soft kiss on the top of her head. His lips lingered for a moment that stretched into eternity. She heard his voice, so low she almost missed it. "Good night, Amelia. Thank you for coming into my life when I needed you most." He moved away. The door closed softly, and Amelia, alone in the darkness, touched the spot where his lips had been, her heart so full of emotion she didn't know how to contain it. She was completely, irrevocably in love with Caspian Pembroke, and the realization, instead of scaring her, felt like peace, like coming home. The garden at dusk had become their favorite spot. After Elizabeth was asleep, Caspian and Amelia would meet there, on a stone bench under a wisteria-covered pergola. Tonight, Caspian was especially quiet, his gaze distant. "Do you want to talk about it?" Amelia finally asked, taking his hand. Caspian looked down at their intertwined fingers. "My parents called today," he said, his voice heavy. "Oh," Amelia replied softly. "And?" "They're coming back. In 3 weeks, for Christmas." There was no excitement in his tone, only dread. "You don't want them to come back," Amelia observed gently. "It's not that I don't want them to," he sighed, running his free hand through his hair. "It's that every time they return, it's for an event, a social appearance, and Grandma," his voice broke. "Grandma is always so sad after they leave, because it reminds her that her son chooses anything and everything over her." Amelia squeezed his hand. "And you get angry." "Furious," Caspian corrected. "Because they act like parents when it's convenient, but disappear when the real work begins. Like when Grandma was first diagnosed and they were too busy to come home. Or when I had that stress-induced heart attack at 26, and they sent flowers but didn't show up." "You had a heart attack?" Amelia turned to him, alarmed. "A minor one," he clarified. "Extreme stress, lack of sleep. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Grandma never left my side. My parents, a 5-minute phone call about managing my time better." The anger in his voice was palpable. Amelia didn't know what to say, so she didn't say anything. She just moved, shifting onto his lap and wrapping her arms around him in a hug that said everything words couldn't. Caspian froze for a second, then melted into her, burying his face in the crook of her neck. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her skin. "I didn't mean to dump all this on you." "Don't you ever apologize for having feelings with me," Amelia said firmly. "Never. I want to know all the parts of you, Caspian. The good, the wounded, the complicated." They stayed like that, as the night fell completely around them. "I want you to meet them," Caspian finally said. "My parents, when they come back." "Are you sure?" Amelia asked. "No," he admitted. "They'll judge you. They'll ask about your credentials. They'll act as if a caregiver isn't appropriate for their son. But you're an important part of my life now. And hiding you would be like them. Choosing appearances over truth." He pulled back slightly to look at her. "And I refuse to be like them." Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. "Okay. I'll meet them. And then I'll take care of Elizabeth and you because you're both going to need it when they leave again." "How are you so incredible?" Caspian whispered. "It's just me. Nothing special." "You're everything," he interrupted. And then, as if the words were about to spill out, as if a dam were about to break, Caspian opened his mouth. "Amelia, Her phone rang, loud, intrusive, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen. It was her mother, Sarah, calling at an odd hour. "I'm sorry, I have to take this," Amelia said quickly. "It might be important." "Of course, answer it," Caspian urged. She answered. She listened, and the blood drained from her face. "What? When? Is she okay?" Caspian was on his feet instantly. "Amelia, what is it?" She hung up, her hands trembling. "It's my grandmother, Rose. She fell. She's at the hospital. A possible hip fracture." Tears streamed down her face. "I have to go, now. I'll take you," Caspian said immediately. "Get what you need. Let's go." In the car, Amelia was falling apart. "She's everything to me. If something happens, it won't," Caspian said firmly, taking her hand while he drove. "Rose is strong, like you. She'll be fine. You can't promise that." "I can't," he agreed, "but I can promise I'll be there. With you, no matter what." And he was. He was there through hours of waiting at the hospital, through the surgery for a confirmed hip fracture, through Rose waking up confused but alive. Caspian held Amelia as she cried with relief. He brought coffee for an exhausted Sarah. He even charmed Rose when she was lucid enough to talk. "He's a good one," Rose whispered to Amelia when Caspian stepped out to make a call. "You hold on to him, my girl." "I'm trying, Grandma," Amelia whispered back. "Don't try. Do," Rose insisted, squeezing her hand with surprising strength. "Men like that don't come around twice." When they finally left the hospital at 4 a.m, Caspian drove Amelia to her family's apartment. "You need your things," he said, "the comfort of home." Inside the tiny apartment, Amelia finally broke down. "I almost lost her," she sobbed. "But you didn't," Caspian said, pulling her into a hug. "But one day I will," she cried. "And one day Elizabeth, too. One day everyone I love." "Hey," he said, holding her tight. "We can't live in fear of losing people. We can only love them while we have them. And you love so well, Amelia. So completely." He kissed her forehead. "It's one of the million things I love about you." Time stopped. "What did you say?" Amelia looked up at him. Caspian realized his slip. He could have taken it back. But instead, he met her gaze. "I love you." "I was trying to say it in the garden before the phone rang. And this isn't the perfect moment. And you're exhausted and emotional. But I need you to know. I love you, Amelia Davis, completely, terrifyingly. In a way, I've never loved anyone." Her tears started again. But they were different now. "I love you too," she whispered. "So much it scares me." "It doesn't have to be scary," Caspian murmured. "Not when it's mutual." He kissed her, a kiss salty with tears and sweet with relief. When they finally pulled apart, Amelia asked, "Stay with me? Tonight? Just stay?" "Always," Caspian promised. And he stayed. The offer arrived a week later. It was a thick envelope with the logo of an international law firm, delivered directly to Caspian during breakfast. Amelia and Elizabeth were discussing Christmas decorations when they saw it. Caspian opened the envelope, read the contents, and his face went pale. "What is it?" Elizabeth asked immediately. Caspian didn't answer. He just kept reading. "Caspian," Amelia said, standing up and moving closer. "What happened?" He finally looked up, his eyes hollow. It's an offer to lead the company's European expansion, based in London, for 2 years. The silence that followed was deafening. "London," Elizabeth repeated, her voice thin. "For 2 years." "It's an incredible opportunity," Caspian said, but his voice was empty. "The growth I've been planning for. New markets. It would be a huge step for the company." "But you'd be far away," Amelia said softly. His eyes met hers. "Yes. For 2 years," she repeated. "Yes," he confirmed. "And are you going to take it?" she asked, dread coiling in her stomach. There was a long, heavy pause. "I don't know," Caspian finally admitted. He stood up, throwing his napkin on the table. "I need to think. Excuse me." He left the room abruptly. Elizabeth and Amelia sat in silence. "He's going to take it," Elizabeth finally said, her voice trembling. "Don't say that," Amelia started. "He will," Elizabeth insisted, tears welling in her eyes. "Because he's Caspian. Because he puts work above everything. Because he learned from his parents that people are temporary. But a career is permanent. And I'm going to lose him. I'm going to lose you both." That night, Amelia found Caspian in his office, surrounded by papers. He was working. Of course he was. "May I come in?" she asked from the open doorway. He looked up, and she could see the pain in his eyes. "Always," he said. She sat in the chair opposite his desk, creating a professional distance they hadn't had in weeks. "You're going to accept it, aren't you?" His silence was the only answer she needed. "Caspian," she began. "It's everything I've worked for," he finally said. "European expansion, global growth. It would be the culmination of a decade of work." "I know," she whispered, "but it means leaving you, leaving Grandma, and I don't know if I can do that." "You can," Amelia said, and though her own voice broke, she forced it to be firm. "If it's your dream, you have to go." "And what about us?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "Long distance for 2 years, with you in a different time zone, building a new life? It would be difficult." "Impossible," Caspian corrected, his voice flat. "You're saying it's over." "I'm saying I won't hold you back," Amelia said, the tears finally falling. "If London is where you need to be, then go, and I'll be okay. Elizabeth and I will be okay." "I don't want to leave you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know," she replied, "but sometimes love means letting go, doesn't it?" In the days that followed, Caspian was distant. He worked late, avoiding deep conversations, emotionally preparing himself to leave. Elizabeth grew quieter, more fragile. It was Rose who called and put it all into perspective. "So what are you going to do?" her grandmother asked after Amelia explained everything. "Just let him go?" "What can I do?" Amelia cried. "Ask him to give up his dream?" "You can ask him to choose," Rose said gently. "Love or ambition, and then you accept his answer." "What if he chooses ambition?" Amelia asked. "Then you'll know it wasn't meant to be," Rose replied. "And you'll survive. You always survive, my warrior." 3 days before the deadline to accept the offer, Caspian found Amelia in the library. "I've decided," he said. Amelia held her breath. And? He took a deep breath. I'm taking the offer. I leave in 2 weeks. Amelia's world crumbled. Okay, she managed to say. Okay? He seemed surprised she wasn't fighting. Okay, she repeated, if that's what you want. It's not about what I want. It's always about what you want. Amelia interrupted, her voice shaking. You want London more than you want to stay, and that's fine. Really. She stood up, because if she stayed, she would break completely. I'll take care of Elizabeth, I promise. Amelia, wait, he started. No. Please, she said from the doorway. You've made your choice. Now let me make mine. To move on. She left before he could see the tears streaming down her face. That night, in her room, she cried until she had no tears left, because she loved Caspian Pembroke. But it hadn't been enough. Amelia was packing. Not because she was leaving. She had promised to care for Elizabeth, and she would keep that promise. But she was moving her things from the main guest room to a smaller one down the hall, creating distance, protecting herself. There was a soft knock on the door. Come in, Amelia said without looking up from the clothes she was folding. It was Elizabeth holding an envelope. I need you to do something for me, the older woman said. Of course, anything, Amelia replied. Deliver this to Caspian, Elizabeth instructed, holding out the envelope. But only if he really goes, if he gets on that plane, if he leaves me. There were tears in Elizabeth's eyes. It's a letter. I wrote it last night. I couldn't sleep, knowing I'm about to lose my grandson to the ambition he learned from his parents. Amelia took the envelope, her hands trembling. Elizabeth! Don't read it now, Elizabeth said. Read it if he goes, and then you decide if he deserves to know what he's throwing away. I can't make that decision. Amelia started. You can, Elizabeth insisted, taking Amelia's hand. Because you love him. And sometimes love means speaking hard truths, doesn't it? That evening, 10 days before Caspian's departure, there was a farewell dinner. It was a forced attempt at normalcy. Amelia's mother, Sarah, and her grandmother, Rose, had come. Caspian tried to make conversation, to act as if everything were normal, but no one was buying it. So London, Rose said with the subtlety of a hammer. Pretty city, rainy, cold, lonely. Grandma, Amelia muttered. What? I'm making an observation, Rose said, turning her sharp gaze on Caspian. You ever been? A few times. For business, he answered. And you liked it? Rose pressed. The loneliness? Being away from everyone who cares about you? Caspian put down his fork. With all due respect, Mrs. Davis, it's Rose, she cut in. And I'm going to say what no one else will. You're being an idiot. A shocked silence fell over the table. Rose continued, relentless. My granddaughter loves you. She won't tell you because she's proud, but I will. She loves you in a way I've never seen her love anyone. And you? You're choosing work. Just like your parents chose cruises over their own son. It's not the same thing. Caspian tried to argue. It's exactly the same thing, Rose insisted. You're repeating a pattern, running from intimacy, from vulnerability, hiding behind a career opportunity. But the truth? You're scared. Grandma, please, Amelia tried to intervene. Let him hear it, Rose said. Caspian, you grew up believing that love is temporary, that people leave, so you're leaving first, before they can hurt you. But you know what? You're hurting them. That woman over there, she pointed to Elizabeth, who raised you, who loved you when no one else would, is losing you. And my granddaughter, who has a heart the size of an ocean, is quietly breaking because she thinks she isn't enough to make you stay. Caspian looked at Amelia. She was staring at her plate, silent tears falling onto it. I never said, he started. You didn't have to, Amelia finally said, looking up. Your actions did. You chose, and I respect that. But Grandma Rose is right. You're running away. Just like they ran away from you. She stood up. Excuse me. She left the room, Sarah followed. Elizabeth went after them, leaving Caspian alone with Rose. "You're going to hate me now," Rose observed. "No," Caspian said quietly. "You're right. About all of it." "Then why are you still going?" she asked. "Because I don't know how not to," he admitted. "Work is all I've ever known. It's all I've ever been good at." "You're good at loving, too," Rose said gently. "I see it in the way you look at my granddaughter, in how you care for Elizabeth. You've built a home here, even without realizing it. But you have to decide. Are you going to spend your life building an empty empire? Or are you going to have the courage to build a family?" That night, Caspian couldn't sleep. He wandered through the mansion, every room filled with memories of Amelia. The library, where they'd read together. The kitchen, where she'd tried to teach him how to make pancakes. The garden, where they'd kissed under the stars. He realized these weren't just rooms. They were moments. They were a life. The life he was about to leave behind. In the morning, 8 days before his flight, he found Elizabeth at the breakfast table. "Where's Amelia?" he asked. "Taking her mother and grandmother home," Elizabeth replied. She studied him. "You look terrible." "I didn't sleep," he said. "Guilt will do that," she noted. He sat down. "Grandma, I need your advice." "You'll ignore it anyway, like you always do, but go on," she said. "How do I know if I'm making the right choice?" he asked. Elizabeth reached across the table and took his hand. "Ask yourself this," she said, her voice soft. "What will you regret more? Missing out on some silly career opportunity you don't even need, or losing the woman who makes you feel at home for the first time in your life?" Caspian didn't answer, because he already knew the answer. 3 days before Caspian's departure, Amelia found Elizabeth's letter under her door. The envelope was sealed, Caspian's name written in the older woman's shaky script. Amelia hadn't seen him in days. He was avoiding her, working late at the office, coming home only after she was in her room. He's a coward, she thought. But she knew she was being a coward too, hiding away to avoid the pain of a final goodbye. Elizabeth had told her she could read the letter if she needed to. Her hands trembling, Amelia broke the seal. "My dearest Caspian," the letter began. "If you are reading this, it means you have truly gone, that you chose London over staying, and I need you to know, I am not angry, disappointed perhaps, heartbroken, certainly, but not angry. You have always done what you thought was right. Ever since you were a little boy, so stubborn, so determined, working harder than anyone to prove you were worth something, as if you ever needed to. Here is the truth I never told you. You were always enough, not because of your accomplishments, not because of money or success, just because you were you, my grandson, my boy. Amelia sees that. She sees a value in you that has nothing to do with being a CEO or a billionaire. She sees a man who reads poetry at midnight, who cries alone when he thinks no one is looking, who loves so deeply but is too afraid to admit it. If you go, you will lose her. Not just a relationship, but the chance at a life you have always deserved. A life of family, of home, of being loved not for what you do, but for who you are. London will not give you that. Success will not give you that. Only love can. And that love is here, waiting. If you have the courage to stay. But if you go, if you truly go, know this. I will love you anyway. I will just love you from afar, and I will miss you until my last day. With all my heart, Grandma Elizabeth. Amelia was sobbing by the time she finished reading. Elizabeth had said everything she couldn't, everything Caspian needed to hear. That night, his last night, Amelia finally went to Caspian's room. She knocked. "Come in," his tired voice called out. She entered. The room was a mess of half-packed suitcases, clothes strewn about, tickets and documents lying on the bed. "I need you to know something," Amelia said before she lost her nerve. "Before you go, Caspian stopped packing and looked at her. "I love you," she said, tears already falling. "I know I've said it, but I need to say it again. I love you in a way that scares me, because it means you have the power to destroy me." Her voice broke. "But I love you enough to let you go, because your dream matters, and I would never ever ask you to give that up for me." Caspian crossed the room in 2 strides and took her face in his hands. "Amelia? But I need you to know," she continued, pulling away slightly. "If you go, I won't be here when you get back. I can't spend 2 years waiting, hoping you might choose to come back. I have to move on. I have to find someone who will choose me first. Someone who sees that the home we built is worth more than any contract." "You deserve that," Caspian whispered, his own eyes shining with unshed tears. "You deserve better than me." "I don't want better," she cried. "I want you, but I want the version of you that stays, the version that chooses. And if that version doesn't exist—" She backed away toward the door. "Then I accept that." She was at the door when he spoke again. "I love you too," he said, his voice cracking. "So much that it's killing me to leave." "Then don't leave," she said without turning around. "It's as simple as that." She closed the door, leaving Caspian alone with his suitcases and his choices. The next morning, Amelia woke at 6. Caspian's flight was at 8. He must have already left. She went down to the kitchen, needing to keep her routine for Elizabeth, needing to pretend she was okay. But the kitchen was empty. The hall was empty. And when she checked the garage, she saw it. Caspian's car was gone. He was gone. He had really gone. No goodbye, no last conversation. Just gone. Amelia sank to the kitchen floor, her body racked with sobs. She was broken. Elizabeth found her there a few minutes later. The older woman sat down beside her with some difficulty and pulled her adopted granddaughter into a hug. "He's gone," Amelia sobbed. "He really left." "I know, my dear," Elizabeth whispered, her own tears falling. "I know." They cried together, for a love that was lost, for a future that would never be. When they finally managed to stand and start their day, the mansion felt hollow. The rooms that had been so full of warmth and life now just echoed with emptiness, because Caspian had taken the light with him, and he had left only shadows behind. 3 weeks. 21 days had passed since Caspian left. Elizabeth had grown more fragile, not physically but spiritually, as if losing her grandson had broken something inside her. Amelia did everything right, the exercises, the medications, the balanced meals. But she couldn't fix a broken heart, not Elizabeth's, and not her own. It was a cold Monday morning in December. Amelia was in the garden, watering the plants, when she heard a car. No one was expected. She turned, and she saw it. A black Mercedes, Caspian's car. It pulled to a stop in the driveway. Her heart stopped. The car door opened and he got out. He was too thin, with dark circles under his eyes, his clothes rumpled. He looked destroyed. "Amelia," he said, his voice hoarse, as if he hadn't used it in days. "You're not supposed to be here," Amelia said, the watering can still in her hands, using it like a shield. "You're supposed to be in London, building your empire." "I couldn't," Caspian said, his voice cracking. "I couldn't stay." "You were there for 3 weeks," she started. 21 days, he corrected. 504 hours, and every single one was more miserable than the last. He took a step toward her. She took a step back. "Amelia, please," he begged. "Let me explain." "Did you miss home?" she asked, her voice sharp with pain. "Did you miss your grandmother?" "I came back because I made the wrong choice," Caspian interrupted, his words tumbling out. "London was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Every second I was there, all I could think about was you, about Grandma, about the home I left behind." "You can't do this," Amelia said, tears finally falling. "You can't leave, break our hearts, and then come back expecting everything to be normal. I know, he said, his voice thick with regret. I know I messed up. I know I might have lost you forever. But I had to try. I had to tell you that I made the wrong choice, and I'm here now to make the right one. And what's that? She whispered. You, he said without hesitation. Us. This. He gestured toward the mansion. Home. Family. Love. All the things I spent my life thinking I didn't need. All the things I was afraid to need. But I do need them. Desperately. You left London. Amelia could barely ask the question. On the first day, he confessed. I went to the first meeting, looked at a room full of executives who only saw CEO Pembroke, and I realized, I don't want to spend 2 years being seen like that. I want to be seen the way you see me, as a person, as the man who reads Rilke and makes bad hot chocolate and cries during storms. Then why did you stay for 3 weeks? She asked, confused. Untangling the contract, he explained. Finding a replacement, making sure I wasn't leaving the company in the lurch. Always responsible, she murmured. It wasn't my dream, Caspian said, his voice filled with a newfound certainty. It was my parents' dream, their expectation. It took me 3 weeks to realize that. He was standing right in front of her now. Amelia Davis, I love you. I love you more than ambition, more than success, more than anything I ever thought mattered. And if you'll give me a chance, just one chance, I will spend the rest of my life proving that you were always the right choice. And what about your grandmother? A voice called out from behind them. It was Elizabeth. She was on the veranda, leaning on a walker, tears streaming down her face. Did you come back for me too? Grandma, Caspian said, rushing to her side and pulling her into a hug. I'm so sorry. For leaving. For hurting you. Shh, she said, patting his back. You came back. That's all that matters. She kissed his forehead. Now go ask her properly. On your knees. A big, movie-worthy declaration. She deserves it. Caspian turned. Amelia was still in the garden, watching, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might be visible. He walked back to her, and there, on the bench, he knelt. I don't have a ring, he began, his voice shaking. I don't have a speech planned, but I have the truth. And the truth is, without you, I have everything, and I have nothing. An empty mansion, a full bank account, and a heart that has forgotten how to beat properly. Caspian, she whispered. You taught me that home isn't a place, he continued, taking her hand. It's a person, and you are my home, Amelia. Wherever you are is where I belong. So I'm asking you, not as your boss, not as a billionaire, but as a man who loves you more than breathing. He looked up at her, his heart in his eyes. Will you come home? Will you stay with me? Will you build a life with me? Not the version my parents approve of, but the version that's messy and real and ours? Amelia was crying and laughing and falling apart all at once. You're an idiot, she sobbed. I know, he said. You left me. You broke me. I know, he repeated, and I regret it every single second. Promise you'll never do it again? She asked. I promise, he vowed. You are my priority. Always. Above work, above expectations, above everything. A silence fell between them, filled only by the sound of their breathing. Then Amelia spoke. Yes. Yes? He asked, hope dawning on his face. Yes, you idiot, she cried. Yes, I'll come home, because you're my home too. He pulled her into a desperate, relieved, promise-filled kiss. From the veranda, Elizabeth was applauding. Finally, she called out. I thought I was going to die of old age waiting for you two. 3 months later, spring was coaxing the garden back to life. Amelia sat on their bench, reading aloud to Elizabeth, who was comfortably settled in a padded chair Caspian had custom-made for their garden time. Caspian was in a virtual meeting, having shifted to working mostly from home. Life was good, simple, perfect in its imperfection. The sound of a car on the gravel driveway made Amelia look up. Visitors? A man and a woman in their 60s, impeccably dressed and radiating wealth, were stepping out of a car. Amelia recognized them from photos. Caspian's parents. They were back. And they hadn't called. Mother, father. Caspian's voice came from behind Amelia. He had come out upon hearing the car, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot. What a surprise. Caspian, his mother, Victoria, said, air-kissing the space near his cheeks. You're looking casual. I'm at home, he replied simply. Mother, father. This is Elizabeth, my grandmother, whom you haven't visited in... What has it been? 8 months? And this, he said, turning to Amelia, is Amelia, my fiancée. The world seemed to stop for a second. Fiancé? Victoria repeated, the word dripping with disbelief. Since when? Since I realized I don't want to spend another day of my life without her, Caspian said, walking to Amelia's side and taking her hand. A beautiful, simple diamond now shone on her finger. Amelia, these are my parents, Victoria and Richard Pembroke. It's a pleasure to meet you, Amelia said politely, standing. Victoria's eyes scanned her from head to toe, taking in her simple dress, her lack of makeup, her unpolished nails. The judgment was palpable. And you are the nurse? The physical therapist, Amelia corrected gently. Elizabeth's caregiver. Ah, Victoria said, her tone making it clear what she thought. How convenient. After a tense tour of the house, Victoria finally asked, So, when is the wedding? In 2 months, Caspian answered. It will be small, intimate, just close family and friends. Small? Victoria scoffed. Caspian, you are a Pembroke. A wedding is an event. It is our day, Caspian interrupted, his voice firm. And it will be the way we want it. Small, here on the property, with only the people who truly care about us. And if we refuse to come? Victoria challenged. A silence fell. Then Caspian smiled, a cool, steady smile. Then you'll miss it. Your choice, as it always has been. Victoria, perhaps we should... Richard began. No, she snapped, turning to Amelia. No offense, dear, but you don't belong in this world. You're sweet, I'm sure, but you are unsuitable. Caspian needs a wife who can represent the family. He needs a wife who loves him. Elizabeth's voice cut through the tension, sharp and clear. And she does. I've watched her. She cared for us when you... She looked pointedly at her son and daughter-in-law. Were too busy to notice your family was falling apart. Mother, Richard started. No. You need to hear this, Elizabeth said, rising from her chair with Amelia's help. You abandoned Caspian repeatedly. He grew up thinking love was conditional, that people leave. Until he met Amelia. She taught him that staying is a choice, that love is an action. And she stays, even when it's hard. Grandma, Caspian said, moving to support her. She stays, Elizabeth repeated. So you have a choice. You can accept this, come to the wedding, and try to be a family. Or you can leave again, and lose him for good. 2 months later, the garden was spectacular. It was decorated simply but beautifully for the wedding. Sarah and Rose sat in the front row. Elizabeth was there too, in a wheelchair now, but her eyes shone with pride. And surprisingly, so were Victoria and Richard. They sat in the back, still looking slightly out of place, but they were present. The music began. Amelia walked down the aisle alone, a deliberate choice. When she reached Caspian, he was crying. You're beautiful, he whispered. You are too, she whispered back, wiping a tear from his cheek. The ceremony was perfect. Their self-written vows made everyone cry. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the garden erupted in applause. Later, at the reception, Amelia was getting a glass of water when a man approached her. "Excuse me," he said. "I need some help. I'm looking for..." Before he could finish, a familiar arm wrapped around Amelia's waist. It was Caspian. "She's with me," he said, a perfect echo of that day in the bakery. The man laughed. "Ah, the bride. Congratulations. I was just looking for the restroom." "Over there," Caspian pointed, but he didn't let go of Amelia. When they were alone, she turned in his arms. "She's with me?" she quoted, smiling up at him. "Déjà vu?" "Better than the original," Caspian said, his thumb tracing the ring on her finger. "Because this time it's true. You really are with me. Forever." "Forever," Amelia agreed. They danced, wrapped in each other's arms, the world fading away. And Elizabeth, watching with Sarah and Rose, the three grandmothers now inseparable, whispered, "It was worth the wait." "It was," Rose agreed. "My girl is home." "They both are," Sarah added, a happy tear rolling down her cheek. Finally. And it was true. Caspian and Amelia, two hearts broken in different ways, healed by caring for one another, had finally found where they belonged. Not in a mansion or a city, but in each other. Home. Forever.